Hi, this is Pratik Chogli. I'm walking here in Georgetown in Washington, and I wanted to do a video on how INTJs can better manage their social relationships. So the INTJ is one of the 16 personality types in the Myers-Briggs system, and if you're not familiar with the Myers-Briggs system, I recommend just doing some quick research and sort of learning about it. There are a lot of good backgrounders out there. But INTJ stands for introverted, intuitive thinking, and judging. And the INTJ is one of the rarer population types. I think it's the second rarest after the INFJ. And it's estimated to be about 2 to 4% of the population. And INTJs are, the vast majority of them are men. And INTJs sort of stereotypically, they tend to be very analytical, logical. They have a unique capacity to look ahead and plan. But they tend to struggle in the social and people and emotional realm. Now INTJs often sort of feel like they're misunderstood, that they don't quite fit in, almost like they're aliens in mainstream society. And but I think that there are a number of ways where I don't think this is inevitable. And I think that INTJs can better navigate social situations using insights from personality and Myers-Briggs. So I think the first thing that they can do relates to mindset. And I think that a lot of times INTJs, the reason they're often so successful in their career and their work and so forth is because they have a growth mindset where they sort of think about challenges and how to solve them. But they don't often carry that same mentality over to the social sphere, when in fact social skills and relating to people is in many ways a skill set that can be learned and improved. And bringing that mindset to the table can avoid a lot of the frustration that often accompanies these sorts of things. The other thing is that they can use personality type to sort of discriminate between different situations. And when I say discriminate, I don't mean sort of look down on different types, but rather to sort of recognize that all of us have sort of a limited number of relationships that we can reasonably sort of maintain, and rather than sort of trying to sort of always fit into mainstream society, recognizing that there are really only a relatively small number of relationships that they need to invest in that can be quite meaningful. So the way that I think is a good way to think about it is to divide sort of situations into three different types. Now, one category of sort of activities or relationships in the social sphere might be oriented around certain specific activities, and often these activities are ones where personality type doesn't matter too much, that it's possible just to sort of bond and connect with people on the basis of a shared interest. So, for example, like one thing that I like to do is to play squash, and I play with a lot of different people and take lessons from different people. And I have a number of different coaches, all of whom have different personality types. And one of the coaches who I work with closely is an ESTP personality type. And that's, as being an INTJ, not a type that I would naturally connect with, but because we have this sort of shared interest in squash, he's able to sort of obviously coach me and teach me in different ways and develop my game in different ways, and then through that we become friends in other ways. I think the second category of things would be sort of, in the kind of logical, analytical sphere. And here I think INTJs tend to have a lot of overlap and success by working with one other INTJs with whom they obviously have a natural connection, but also with ENTJs and INTPs. With ENTJs, ENTJs and INTJs tend to work very well together because ENTJs tend to be a little bit more aggressive, better at getting things done. They're sort of the stereotypical CEO, and they can benefit from the INTJ's strategic insight, whereas the INTJ can benefit from the ENTJ's ability to get things done. So they often make for a good pair. And then in the case of the INTP is one of the relatively rare types who are even more intellectual than the INTJ and can bring a lot of creative insights that may elude the INTJ, who's a little bit quicker to judge certain things or kind of reach conclusions prematurely. And then the final realm would be in areas where that are more emotional in nature, and here the NF personality types are tend to be a good complementary pair for the INTJ. The NFs being sort of known as the idealists, the intuitive feelers. In the realm of sort of romantic relationships, dating, and so forth, the ENFP and INTJ tend to have very sort of easy, good, and natural chemistry and attraction. But relationships also with the INFP can work well, or the INFJ. And those personality types also tend to be good for the INTJ, for example, in a counseling, therapy sort of a circumstance. And then I think the third tip is that I think INTJs are often, I think, better off sort of, rather than being sort of bitter and annoyed by a lot of mainstream institutions, just sort of recognize that certain institutions like organized religion or schools, especially sort of at the secondary level and so forth, they tend to naturally draw more of the SJ types or the guardians. They tend to be more oriented around tradition, kind of the status quo. Just sort of, they're less inclined to sort of question things, and I think rather than sort of becoming too contrarian or antagonistic and so forth, just sort of recognize that types that they don't naturally connect with. And I think the SJs tend to be where there's the most tendency for a clash. Just to recognize that they have different gifts, it's a different orientation toward the world, and that because SJs tend to be a much higher percentage of the population than INTJs, that they're just going to have a tendency to be more influential or dominant in these situations, and rather than sort of getting frustrated about it, INTJs, I think, might be better off making peace with the fact that certain spheres of society will never be entirely to their liking. But now with the internet, with the ability to travel, the ability to find and connect with other people, this doesn't have to be a constraint. It's just something that can be a reality that coexists with an otherwise fulfilling part of the INTJ's life.